Perhaps you were watching as you came in, we had photos from the last year's Living Machines conference. And when we had an exhibition at the Natural History Museum in London of different types of living machines. And for us, the concept of a living machine is intended to bridge across both the ideas of biomimetics and biohybrid. So it's to do with machines that imitate or copy life or copy the principles of life, or machines that combine a living thing with an artificial thing in some interesting way. And we see ourselves also as a kind of living machine. So by building these artificial living machines, we think we can understand ourselves better. The origins of the idea of a living machine, we think, go back a long way. And one of the reasons we were so keen to have our meeting in this museum is we see Leonardo da Vinci as one of the grandfathers of this idea, this inspiration to look at nature and living things as a design for technology. And as you walked into the museum today, you will have seen a number of Leonardo da Vinci's machines, quite a few of which, I think you probably noticed some flying machines and so on, directly inspired by life. So during the breaks, I hope you have a chance to wander around and see some of the examples of the genius of Leonardo and also how he drew from nature for his ideas. We can also trace our ideas to Descartes in some ways, because Descartes was one of the first people in the Enlightenment to suggest the idea that animals were a kind of complex, intricate machine. And Julien de la Mettrie, writing 100 years after Descartes, or 50 years after Descartes, was brave enough to suggest that human beings ourselves could be intricate and complex machines. And for his trouble, he was thrown out of France and had to go and live in Belgium. So tough life. But you have to stand up for our ideas, and that's why we're here at this meeting. So rushing forward into the last century, we also see ourselves as following in the footsteps of the pioneers of cybernetics, and really bringing cybernetics into the 21st century. And I hope you'll learn from these talks in this conference how cybernetics is thriving and influencing the science and technology of today. So throughout the conference, I think we'll hear quite a lot about biomimetic robots, but biomimetics extends to other kinds of machines, and I think the papers we'll hear are not just limited to biomimetic robots. And we're also interested very much to encourage people to report on research on biohybrids. And biohybrids is a relatively new field, and there are some exciting innovations in biohybrid systems, and we hope to see that side of the conference grow in the future. One of the principles of our work is the idea that science can progress most effectively when it combines the approach of analysis of existing complex systems like living things with the synthesis of model systems like our biomimetic robots. And by doing analysis and synthesis at the same time, one feeding off the other, as Valentino Breitenberg suggested in his book Vehicles, we think that both science and technology can progress faster. And one of the great things about synthesis is it can lead to the construction of machines which embody the principles that we see in life and can be an existence proof of those principles, and show in a machine that's moving around and acting in the world that those principles really can give rise to the behavior that we see in animals. So we see that as an important way of embodying and explaining our theories. And we also see it as a useful way of going from the principles we see in biology towards technology. So we're doing science by building these machines, but also we have the possibility to have new inventions. We also see our field as taking a systems approach, and right now we think that the systems approach, or the approach of regarding living things and understanding living things at multiple levels, is an important one, and that there's a risk that in modern science we're being seduced too much by the possibilities of measuring and recording many things, the idea of big data and the idea of reductionism. And that's something that concerns us, and in the discussion this evening, before we have our cocktails, Paul Verschoor will lead a discussion panel to look at the impact of big data on our science. But we're ourselves interested in a more systems approach, so to look across different levels of organization and to see how what principles operate at those different levels, and to understand the interactions that can occur between the different levels of the complex systems that we call living things. Also, we're interested in the evolution of complex systems and in the processes, the generative and adaptive processes that give rise to complex forms. And so I'm hoping that we'll see evidence of this in the talks. I'm sure in our first talk this morning we'll hear about how complex systems that are living things have arisen through a combination of these form-generating and form-selecting forces. Finally, I want to say that because of our systems approach and our recognition of the complexity of living things needs descriptions at many different levels, that allows us to argue, I think, quite forcefully, and perhaps this will come out of some of the other talks in the meeting, that we don't mean by thinking of living things as being machine-like, that we take away from living machines, particularly from ourselves, the things that are important to us. So we don't reduce psychology to physics, and we don't say that concepts such as ideas and feelings and motives are not useful or important. Rather, we say that we're seeking explanations and understanding of these through our synthetic and analytic approaches. So we believe that our approach to understand living things as machines extends not just in science but through to the social sciences. And we believe also that ethical questions are important when we come to think about the kinds of technologies we're generating. And again, it's something that we want to discuss openly at our meeting and to understand what ethical questions are raised by the kinds of technologies that we are developing. So I think that's enough from me. I'm going to pass over now to Paul Verschoor, the co-chair of the conference, to introduce our first plenary speaker. And I'll just say as well that at the end of the first session, we will have some announcements from Anna Mura about the rest of today. Thank you.